the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 115, recorded Friday, November 1st, 2013. Thanks, Lucy. We'll take it from here.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. It's time for AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I'm your host. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us. With us this week is Sam Malik. Sam is an old friend, but he has a brand spanking new title that we're going to take out for a spin today. Sam is the Vice President and General Manager of ASK Proxima USA. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Tim. How you doing today?
Doing well, sir. By the way, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
On the new gig. Also with us is Ted Green. Ted is the president of Straticon and the editor of Strategy.com. Hello, sir.
Hey, good afternoon. Hello to everybody, all three of us.
All three. Well, you know, this will be a nice, intimate conversation. How about that?
Yes, absolutely.
We're a tight-knit group.
We are. Well, the industry's tight-knit. We're tight-knit. It all works out. This week, we're going to talk about Sony finally giving us something to play with in the realm of 4K. Dell has taken themselves private, and whether or not that is a good thing or a bad thing for them and for us both. And also, we're going to look and see if we can't find the market for the middle ground, I guess, when it comes to home automation, the market for middle-income folks. But first, we're going to talk about Samsung. Samsung announced this week that they are opening their first plant outside of South Korea. And what makes this interesting is the fact that for the first time they are making specifically LCDs outside of their home turf. Sam, when it comes to where they make these, does it matter? And if it doesn't, why pick China?
Yeah, this is really an interesting announcement because everybody's been watching the Korean manufacturers, LG and Samsung, all along. And the thing that's made them tough to beat, especially by the Japanese and the other manufacturers, is the Korean government subsidizes the plants in Korea to keep all their people working, to keep their factories humming and keep their people busy. So opening up a factory in China obviously is a strategic move to drive more business in China. The Chinese are very particular about, buy stuff that's built here. And I can only think that Samsung is doing this for the strategy to reach 2 billion people.
Ted, is that right? Is that what we're thinking here? Is that they're trying to reach more and more into the Chinese market?
Yeah, I think there's probably two possibilities here. One could be just another example of the wheel in the sky keeps turning. I mean, you guys are probably both too young to remember, but I remember when TV manufacturing was centered here in the United States, and then thanks to lower cost of manufacturing and improving technology, it moved to Japan. So it certainly could be a factor. I mean, the lowest labor costs in the world right now are in China, and that could be a factor. But probably more likely is to open up the Chinese market to Samsung products and doing the partnership with a Chinese partner to help open the doors to that market. It's probably more likely that, or that's the heavier weighted component of why they chose to make the move. It was an interesting move, though.
Sam, is this kind of a throwback to the U.S. when back in the 70s and the 80s, where there was a big push to not buy anything that wasn't stamped made in the USA? Is that where the market is in China now, or is it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not in that culture right now, but from afar it certainly looks that way, and I can't see any other reason because after the subsidy, I think manufacturing is still cheaper in Korea than it is in China, but from on the projector side of the world, we're looking at everything on a worldwide basis. The fastest growing market right now, explosive growth, is China. So I've got to believe this is strategic just to drive more business and partner up with China.
So, Ted, would it make sense for maybe, I don't know, AMX or Aurora or somebody else to start putting a plan. Let's keep in the display market. Maybe Sanyo moves to some of their stuff to China.
Well, I think the short answer to that question
Not Sanyo. I'm sorry, Sharp. Sanyo's no more.
Sharp. I think the short answer to that question is that, I don't know the real number, but it's got to be upwards of 90% of all consumer electronics are made in China right now anyway. I would say that any manufacturer who is manufacturing anywhere other than China is probably generating product at a little bit higher cost than they could if they were to move to China. So, the answer is that might make sense for them to do that. However, lately, the pendulum has to some degree swung the other way, and Apple and a few other companies have announced moving some of their production back to the United States for their select higher end products. I think, if you're a manufacturer, you can't ignore the influence of China. When I was at Onkyo, we had studied moving our production. In fact, we opened a plant up in Malaysia, and we looked at Vietnam, and ultimately Onkyo has production in China now as well. So, it's hard to ignore it. It's a very large labor pool. It's a very low cost environment, and they're getting better at what they do.
Ted, you mentioned the fact that people like Apple are bringing some of their stuff back to the States. Is that a quality control issue, or is it a labor issue? What is that?
For labor-intensive products, and with focusing on only a select group of very high-quality manufacturers in China, the cost differential on a lower-run, higher-margin item is lessened, and so it actually can make sense to move it back to the U.S. And, I have to tell you that there's just a handful of stories of that happening, but we are starting to see a little bit of that going on. We are seeing people reanalyze based on the product segment that they're targeting.
Very good. All right, let's move along to HDMI, at least specifically TV One's new HDMI distribution amplifier. Not specifically about this product, but it brought up another question. The fact that we still have products like this, and we'll probably still always have products like this. I mean, good Lord, I think people are still selling VGA distribution amps, which is still silly. I'm sorry, we are so we're not so post, but they're still. We've entered into the era of the analog sunset. Take your VGAs and burn them. I don't know. But with the maturing of HD base T, and with the maturing of AVB, Ted, are we getting to the point where things like the HDMI distribution amp is going to be relegated to small one-off installations, and people are people moving towards this category installed cable infrastructure?
I think, like it or love it, we're stuck with HDMI, and we're stuck with it for a few more years. I think that a product like this is kind of a, it seems to be. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not the guy if you're looking for a technical breakdown of it. But it seemed to me to be a relatively savvy solution that integrators still need in the toolkit and will need in the toolkit for the foreseeable future. HDMI, still remains a controversial technology. I still have integrators that off the record say really unkind things about HDMI. But the fact is it is the standard, and it is well entrenched. And for the foreseeable future, we're going to be excited about products like this because they help us deal with the issue of HDMI.
Do you know why they say unkind things about it? Because you can't freaking lock the connector. That's why.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that and short cable runs and reliability, and it's a little bit scary.
Mr. Malik, are we entering into an age where we're going to have nothing but category cables, and the HDMI DAs are going to be relegated to small little installations?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's here to stay for a while. I mean, I probably think we're looking at 4 to 5 years, run for HDMI. it's funny because I still have some projector products with RGB input on it, part of that analog sunset, but there's still people that demand it. As I went out to try and buy a notebook, a new laptop, to try and find one that still has an RGB output on it is nearly impossible. Ended up shopping 7 different stores, finally found one that had both on it. So everything is HDMI that's out there right now. And as far as the installs go, you're right. The connectors don't lock, but the people are comfortable, and this is what they got to work with. So we're stuck with it for a while.
Well, joining us live from somewhere in the great north, you're straight north of me, aren't you, Mr. Iselli?
Thank you. I apologize for my tardiness.
No, that was my fault,
yes,
actually.
I'm somewhere in the north.
No, just for the record, it was my fault because I told him the wrong time. So I won't let you take the blame on that. Kevin Iselli is joining us. He is the senior curriculum developer for Crestron Electronics. How are you, sir?
I'm excellent. How are you guys doing?
Good. I'm glad that I got you on just for this story, or just in time for the story. We're talking about the distribution amp for HDMI. Are we obviously Crestron has an interest in this because of digital media, but are we entering an era where HDMI DAs are going to be small little novelty pieces?
Well, that's an excellent question. It depends on your approach to distribution.
My approach to distribution.
That's true. I think for this, as I was listening as you came in, you were talking about the home. To the home market, will a small distribution type system be appropriated? Yeah, I think so. As you get to more corporate or commercial style distribution, obviously HDMI spec not giving us a great deal of distance, you will have to move to a different topology, or at least different infrastructure. But I think the small little DAs, yeah, we're seeing them used quite often, even in conjunction with our product.
Well, what about Sam's observation where when he went to go buy a laptop here recently, couldn't find one with an analog output? Are we going to? Well,
thank God.
Thank God. So, when will the manufacturers of laptops and other computer products move to not just HDMI, but will it be HD base T? Will it be AVB? And is it going to be an RJ45, or is it going to be the same network jack? Is that all that one RJ45 jack going to carry everything?
Well, you have to understand when we're not separating AVB from this for just a second. When you say HD base T, you're propagating HDMI. HD base T does not exist without HDMI. It does require TMDS,
okay.
HDMI chipset. All it's doing is changing the form factor, if you will. Yes, it's serializing it. It's doing, let's say, Ethernet type protocol, though it doesn't carry IP protocol. It just has a channel for it. Does it make it easier for connectivity? Yes, to some. I preface that by to some.
To some integrators, or to some manufacturers, or to some end users?
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah. See, I ran into a case not too long ago where an end user had a situation. I get it, and they called us, and it resulted in them using a pretty high quality infrastructure, a Cat6 style, if you will, 10 gig infrastructure. But that last patch cable that they were using was actually a Cat3 cable.
Oh.
Right, but it didn't matter because it had RJ45s on each end. It's one of the things that we see, the incompatibility of the infrastructure to the patch cable, to the channel, to the permalink. These are now things, let's say, that the AV industry should pay attention to. The infrastructure itself. Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm trying to address in our curriculum is saying, hey, we've adopted this infrastructure, right? We like this twisted pair. We like this RJ45 or this modular plug style of connectivity. Understand that there's rules behind using those, right? And we kind of have turned our back to the rules.
Well, speak for yourself. I like the fiber. It's just expensive, so.
Well, okay, to that question, I would ask you, Tim, how much does failure cost?
Well, I know, but it doesn't cost as much as it costs more than my budget. How about that?
Oh, no, exactly. But what I'm getting at is even just the standard deployment of when people look at distance limitations on a cable, right? Well, even our marketing will say that it's 100 meters, but we're referring to something very specific. We are talking about the channel length, right?
Mm-hmm.
That includes both ends of patch cables. In the AV industry, they interpret that as that's how long the cable can be, and then I can put my patch cables on it, and they can be, oh Jesus, 75, 80-foot patch cables.
They can be 100 meters.
Yes, they can be 100 meters as well, right? So there's a little bit of self-awareness we need to bring to light. And you and I have seen this, and even Michael at the shows where the folks from Bixby are showing up. Right, they have a booth. Right, it is taking a global standard, the EIA, TIA, and all of that methodology, and incorporating it into our, let's say, AV little world.
Yeah. All right. Moving on from our buddies over at CE Pro. The question was raised by Jason Knott, and so I'm going to raise it to you, gentlemen. Report this. It's called The Future of Home Automation. Where is the middle market? Report predicts integrators serving the middle market, middle income folks, of $7,500 to $12,000 home automation projects are not in the sweet spot for growth. It's time to start thinking whether you're steering the company toward the high end or the low end. Sam, we'll start with you on this one. When it comes to, first of all, a yes or no question, which I hate asking, is there a middle market for home automation?
Oh, I absolutely think there is, without a doubt. Without a doubt. They're just waiting for the tools and a price point they can afford.
And so, well, then the second question is, when do you think that middle market is going to materialize? How soon?
I think it's starting to emerge now in very basic steps, but I think we won't see it mature and really become, a wide open market for another year or two. I think we're very close to it. The market's demanding it. I think that the tools, the iPad and smartphones and Androids are there as far as, hardware capability to support what people are looking for. As far as an interface, and then people want it. I mean, they absolutely want it for sure, but it just has to be at a price point that people can afford.
I should have started with you, Kevin, because you are a control manufacturer.
Yeah.
Is there a middle ground here? Is there a middle ground? But is there a market in the middle of the road here? Obviously, not the very low end X10 land, let's call it. But is there a market in the middle income Americans for home automation?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's just you have to be careful of how you address it. I was reading this article, and I actually had done some research on the whole Xfinity home system and all the control. And boy, I'll tell you what, that commercial on TV sounds pretty good for only $99 until you actually do all the math. And then you're above that $12,000 home automation market, if you will. No, but I think there is. Even let's just say the majority homeowner, which represents that middle market, is definitely interested in seeing. I mean, you see it, in your daily lives, people accessing security, looking at cameras, controlling just simple things, and I think that's gaining a lot of popularity. Why not be in touch with my dwell? You might have heard we kind of have a product line that does all of that. So you can
who does
more. There's a little Cestron. I think is the name of the company.
Yes.
Yeah, they do control stuff.
Are they the one? Never mind. I won't do that joke. Ted is. Ted, is there? Where is the market for this middle market, and how soon will it mature?
I think this was an excellent article by Jason, and I think he raises a very, very real red flag. I think that the middle market has not developed. I think that we've seen in other segments of our industry this growing dichotomy. The hottest growing segment in our industry right now, talking about consumer electronics, is absolutely smartphones and tablets, and that's basically taken the business away from desktops and laptops in the case of computers. There's this high-end, low-end thing going on right now in almost throughout the industry. I mean, Jason defines the middle market here as a price range of $7,500 to $12,000. Well, I can tell you on the residential side, that's where That's basically the sweet spot of where most of the installers and integrators are. In fact, research that Cedia put out a little bit earlier showed that the average system installation was just a little over $10,000. And I think what Jason's saying here is, look, there's players looking to get into this game. You have the guys on the high end side, the Control 4s, I think he mostly refers to. And then we have some new players coming up. Like I've done a couple of stories on UB and Smart Things, which essentially takes the power of your smartphone and goes to sort of a decentralized control format. I'm not sure they've got it right yet, but they're definitely getting a lot of interest. They had a lot of interest on Kickstarter, and so I would say that what Jason was doing here was sort of raising the alarm. To be careful if you are in that middle market. You could get usurped. By the Xfinities and the Fioses of the world, if they're successful going after, a large portion of that business.
That's actually a good point Sam brings up. I mean, we're looking at these companies going after integrated systems, right?
Yeah.
Like again, you're seeing the commercial on TV. So sign up for Comcast Xfinity and get all this stuff, and that just takes the integrator right out of the picture.
Right.
So okay, so Kevin, as the manufacturer, right, and you, I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just making a statement here. You guys you work with a channel, just like Sam does with ASK Proxima. You work with integrators and other channels like that. People have to go to those integrators to get the product. Would it be? How do I ask this? How would you guys get out? Not necessarily, circumnavigate the integrator, but help the integrator by getting in front of the customer, like Xfinity. I don't know if that's advertising or if that's product placement or what have you, but would it help if your name was a little bit more prominent than Xfinity and Comcast?
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but how did I get to you?
Well, that's true. That's true.
Right?
It was a personal.
We went out. Yeah, it was personal contact. We have, of course, a great deal of marketing effort that goes towards talking to end users, talking to commercial partners and gaming partners and government, and getting them in touch with qualified and our integrator, let's say integrator arm, to say, here's what we can do, and then here are the people that can do it for you. I think right now these. Not pointing at the middle market per se, but some of these things that like smartphone apps and some of these devices and Xfinity. I mean, not just a generalization. They promote a very cool concept. You don't get to be 40 years in the industry without actually knowing some of the hurdles you're going to overcome or need to overcome to be successful. And I think that's where folks like us and AMX and even Control 4 have a little bit of an edge, because when you get right down to it, there isn't an app out there that's going to control everything. You need something in the middle, regardless of how many apps you have on that phone. Because no one likes, me personally, I'm not a big fan of app hopping just to get one thing or another done in the system.
Yeah, you're right. And there was...
You take away the user experience.
Yeah, there was I posted something on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, and it was a rather heated discussion about whether we should whether touch panels were the way to go, or the smartphone, the mobile devices were the way to go. And everything from integrators to tech managers to designers weighed in extremely on both sides. And I personally, I see the value for both. Sometimes I look at the iPad and go, that's an awfully nice $500 wireless touch panel. And you start comparing, because everybody has budgets, but then there is the added value of a dedicated panel and having it always connected. And you're right, you're not going to be app hopping back and forth. So, but yeah, that was
well, actually, your sentence, you said it best. right? You get to the comparison by doing two things. One, price, right? You went by price and budget.
Yeah.
Secondly, and most importantly, I believe, is reliability. When I go to that device, is it communicating on my network? Is it actually working? Do I have to make settings changes? What do I have to do to get it to go? Right, versus on the touch interface. And again, I'm pro both. I like having a interface in my system as well as that smart device or smartphone as a supplement. I don't rely on my smart devices as being the primary. They're always supplemental.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I like having both. I like having the dedicated, whether it's in my own personal space, or whether it's giving it what I give to the president of the college that I work for. I like having both because he's a tech guy, but sometimes he gets lost in his apps. So, all right, moving on from ZDNet, Dell has gone private. Michael Dell, along with a bunch of financial backing, has finally taken Dell, the computer maker, private after so many years, and actually it's something that he's been trying to do for quite a while. Ted, we'll start with you on this one. Is this not specifically Dell themselves, but from a manufacturing standpoint, does it make more sense to have a publicly held company or a privately held one?
Well, I think that what's happening here is that that Dell just felt themselves sinking into the muck, and they've gotten to the point where to move forward, it's not going to be pretty, and they had to get out of the public eye. I think by going private, you have the opportunity to make really substantive and probably ugly changes that a public market would batter you for extended period of time. But you need to get a lot of things right, and they have a lot of issues as far as the businesses they're in, the product lines that they're offering, that require a lot of fix. Basically, public companies, when they find themselves way off the track of where they need to be, they have a couple of options. One option is flush the quarter. So you take one quarter, you take huge write-downs, you lay off a huge number of people, whatever the ugliness is, and then you bounce back from it. The problem is if you have some more serious problems, it's going to require a longer horizon for getting your arms wrapped around it. It's going to take more than a quarter to pull that off, and I think that's where Dell finds themselves. And so this is a logical move to get out of the public eye, to do the sausage making where nobody can see it, and then when you've got a tasty product, re-enter the market and get back on track.
Very nice analogy around lunchtime on a Friday. Thank you. Kevin, you work for a privately held company, and the biggest, I would say, the biggest competitor to you would be AMX. I could be wrong on that, but they are the polar opposite when it comes to ownership. They are part of a publicly held company. Do you think, from a mobility standpoint and a technology standpoint, does it make more sense, or does it not matter if you're publicly held or privately held?
I will. Oh, that's a great question. I think if you're publicly held, you have a tendency to have a little bit more fallout from your investors, right? As we know, in this world, you can't please everybody, right? So, I think when you're a private, on the private sector, as we are, you're controlling your destiny a little bit, which also means that you're able to make larger advancements. Based on directionality, where you see things are going. Can it be a gamble? Anything can, whether you're private or public. But it seems like it's been working for Crestron for 40 plus years, that we basically answer to our own, and it's been fantastic. Like I said, some of the technologies that are out there, just look at DM, for example. That started as a side thought from another product we were making, saying, hey, this could be a challenge in a few years. Maybe we should look into this. And here we are today, 8-9 years later, actually.
Well, some of it also has to do with the fact that the owner in question is also an accomplished engineer and
he likes to tinker.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't hurt your bottom line or your business model if the guy who's basically in charge is an engineer in heart, and he definitely is all over it.
Kevin I think you're really right. I mean, I think at the end of the day, one of the luxuries of being a private company is that you can make a tough decision. Sort of the take one step backwards to take two step forwards decision. And not have to answer at the end of every quarter, on a conference call with investors and analysts, not have to answer to that. And that's a huge opportunity. Public companies, of course, they have greater access to capital. There's benefits to going public. And, we'll see how that works out for Control 4. We'll see if that motivates other people, like Crestron to go public, but there's also minuses, and the biggest minus is that there's no getting around it. Management, ultimately ends up putting a lot of their time and their resources into, answering to investors, and it's hard to avoid having that quarter by quarter focus, and some changes require a longer horizon, and it's easier to do that when you're private.
Yeah. Sam, we'll let you wrap up on this one. Would you rather be, as a company, would you rather be a publicly held or a privately held company?
I've worked for both, and I'd say absolutely private. I think in the Dell situation, it's what's driving that is a bit of ego, and then the ultimate goal, I believe, is to take Dell public again after they turn the company around. I agree with Ted and Kevin's comments that he's an engineer at heart. But there's a lot of ego involved that, he did it once. He wants to prove he can do it again, just as Steve Jobs did. Come back in and turn it around and, oh, look what I did. I'm great. I did it again. I think that just like Best Buy is in the same situation, they need to reinvent themselves. Dell needs to find a new competitive advantage and reinvent themselves. And when you're public, you're so accountable. The public companies that I work for, you make such stupid decisions at the end of every quarter just so that you can, give the right number to the investors and to the marketplace that's investing in your company. And I mean, I totally agree. You spend a third of your time chasing that number every quarter. And you're making decisions based on the number, not based on what's the right thing for the company. So, yeah, I think that the notebook industry overall and networking, Dell, like Toshiba, like Sony, like so many other companies, needs to retool and come up with a new approach. Smartphones and tablet-type products have definitely eaten into their share in their marketplace, and so they need to reinvent themselves and reposition. But I think the ultimate goal is to take them public once again, in 3 to 5 years, so that, he can become a billionaire, twice over instead of just once over,
Well, I wish him luck then. You're listening to AV Week. That guy right there is Sam Malik from ASK Proxima. Ted Green is here from the Stratocom Group and also the editor of Strategy. And Kevin Iselli, senior curriculum developer for Crestron Electronics. I saw this next story, and I immediately thought of my buddy Kevin. This is from AV Network. Sony brings 4K content creation to the masses. Did you hear that, Mr. Iselli?
Woo!
4K.
I'm sorry, I was not paying attention.
The PXW Z100 4K camcorder. That's right, kids. You can make your home movies in 4K.
Sorry, what was the price of that device?
It's a camcorder.
$6,500.
Yeah.
Which is not, it's a slightly more than the Z1U about 7-8 years ago, which was
You just need 2 credit cards instead of one.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I have like 5 or 6 of those just laying around doing nothing.
Jeez. Okay, but it's a start. At least give me it's a start.
It's a
Yeah, come on. The biggest knock, and Kevin and I have had this conversation on air and off, that about 4K is the fact that there's no content. Here's content. Here is honest to goodness homemade content. Is it not?
I didn't say there wasn't content. You can go to YouTube and get content right now.
You can download it. You can't stream it.
Well, think you're going to be able to stream 4K?
Eventually.
That's a different story altogether, my friend.
Eventually. Hey, hang on. 1999, you were not going to be able to stream 1080p, right? You weren't going to be able to stream HD content. And now you can stream HD content. Right?
Sure.
Okay.
All I can say is, Mom better get that mole removed
very nice.
and her mustache waxed before you start talking around with that.
Yeah, very good point. Well, you know, you're right, Tim. I mean, you and I have had this discussion many times. You know, when looking at especially display technology, you know, my hang up is I've always been more upset with the fact that everyone has seemed to have bypassed or is putting OLED off to the side just so they can dangle the next carrot of resolution of 4K in front of you, where, you know, I and you know how I feel. I said, let's take this new OLED technology, which provides us with an absolute myriad of new opportunities, and it seems like most display companies have just kind of just said, yeah, okay, whatever, 4K.
And I would agree with you. One thing, though, that some analysts and some industry people are saying, especially in the consumer electronics industry, is why don't we marry the two? Similar to where HD and flat panels were married in the early 2000s. Why don't we marry 4K to OLED and like push them together at the same time? Would that make sense?
Yeah, that would make the best sense, if you will. But I think maybe it's more of a business decision to say, hey, let's get you first into a 4K and then let's turn you on to a new technology, display technology. What I like, honestly, is I've seen a couple of these displays at the box houses with the Sony 4K, the display, and it's not that cracks me up. It's actually the movies that they're promoting underneath it, the digitally remastered 4K, which is quite humorous because, you know, Tim, you're broadcasting. We kind of both had a similar upbringing, you know, in the film industry. If you were to rasterize, let's say you're 35 mil, you're well above 4K, and they're saying that they've taken the source material, brought it down to 4K, and then mastered it off of that. Yet when you look at every one of these Blu-rays, they still say making the ultimate of your 1080p video, right? It's still outputting 1080p.
Yeah.
So most people are looking at this saying, hey, I'm getting a 4K Blu-ray, and no, you're not.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
No. So they're stepping down the resolution to master it at that level?
Well, yeah, if like Kevin said, if you're taking the original solenoid, if you're taking the original film or whatever it is that you shot this on, and you master it in 4K, quote unquote, you're busting it down. You're reducing the resolution.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's like over 600 DPI or such if you're doing film, so you're well
incredible.
Well, is it
the 6, like you would say, the 6 or 8K and beyond actually for film?
Yeah, but what is it? I don't remember if it was one of your DM classes or another something else I read somewhere where they compared, and it was a graph. It was a beautiful graph. Yeah. The actual picture size, the original resolution in picture size between, you know, they started with 480, and then they raised it all the way up to 8K, and good lord, I mean, the 480 is down here as a postage stamp, and 8K is a semi trailer.
I love how they do that, though. They always talk about resolution and compare it to size.
Well, yeah, but
you can't do that, right?
You can't, but it makes sense to people.
Are you saying size doesn't matter?
What I hear.
Oh, jeez. Wow. You know, it's the analogies we've always seen, or the charts we've always seen, where they show, you know, a 4:3 image, and then a 16:9, and then a 2:3:5, and they keep blowing it up, like you get to see more of the image, almost like you're looking through, like you're vignetting your video, right? Like, I can't see what's all there, but if I had more resolution, I could see behind me. But yeah,
right?
That's true. Yeah,
that's how they present this. It's like, no, you're only still going to see what the device is capturing. It doesn't expose more than what's already there.
But you understand.
You
understand why they do it. Yeah, because
bigger is better.
Not only bigger is better, but sometimes our brains and our you know, I don't know why it is, but a lot of times it's just easier for people to understand it that way. I mean, in essence, what we're saying is there's more information, right? There's more information in an 8K screen or an 8K display than or source than there is in a 480?
There's the same information. It's broken down into smaller bits.
Okay. Is the file size bigger?
Absolutely.
So it's
but
bigger.
that's because you broke it down into smaller bits.
So it is bigger.
It's a bigger spreadsheet. You just don't have to scroll to see it.
There you go.
That's all. Yep.
We're done here.
Ted, is this a good thing? The fact that we're getting homemade 4K, or is Kevin right? The $6,500 price tag is a bit steep.
I was at a Sony event where they rolled out their 3D TVs, and then they turned around and tried to convince us that 3D was going to be the next big thing, because they at the same time rolled out 3D camcorders, and they also rolled out or announced 3D digital cameras. So I'm not sure that that was their same pitch. Was, look, now we'll have millions of people creating 3D content, and it'll help sell 3D. And it didn't seem to really matter. It didn't help 3D at all. I kind of get what you're saying, and there's no question that as we do these format changes, we get into these chicken and egg scenarios where the content creators want to see a large installed base of displays, and the displays can't sell because there's no content. And so, arguably this will help. But I think 4K has a better chance of success only because it's a little more easily understandable by the average consumer. But I don't know if it's going to help. It's we got to wait for the replacement cycle to kick in before there's going to be an appreciable uptick in display sales.
Hang on for a second, Ted. You think that it's more easily understood than to the average consumer? The fact that they started with 4K and also UHD TV, which is not quite 4K. I think that confuses me.
I think that sometimes what we do these things in our industry, we dumb it down. There's a 50-watt amplifier, there's a 100-watt amplifier, so the consumer can kind of categorize in his mind.
Okay.
And so 4K is a little bit easier. The juxtaposition between HD and then 4K is a little easier for them to grasp. I'm not going to say they understand all the intricacies of what that means, but is a little bit easier for them to understand than, say, like OLED, which is a completely different technology and is, it's a great technology, but requires a lot more explanation. It's a little harder for the consumer to grasp what that means.
This is my 2 cents. You don't have to explain OLED to them. Just show it to them.
Just show it to them.
That's all I'm saying.
Very true.
Holy cow.
The 4K in the camera, though, Tim, also, and Ted's right, but I think we also have to look at what does this mean by having readily available 4K cameras, or the ability to get these devices to capture the content. It was actually you, Tim, that sent me an article about the broadcast community saying that our infrastructure is nowhere ready for this. Meaning broadcast.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You are
That's
not going
correct.
to broadcast 4K. So what are we actually doing by propagating a 4K world? Are we basically looking to the broadcast community and say, "Thanks for coming. We'll take it from here"?
Yes.
And
yes, you are.
Japan right now is testing an 8K system.
Yeah, Japan has already they have technically broadcast OTA, over the air, 8K.
Yeah, they're testing it right now.
Yeah.
Kirk
Has anybody done
Cameron's shooting his
2K
next
yet?
movie in 8K right now.
Wow. What'd you say, Kevin?
Has anybody done 2K yet?
No. They just bypassed it. Now, here's the thing. To Kevin's point more directly, yes, that is exactly what we're saying. And understand that's a bigger question than that you're asking. Unfortunately, broadcasters, people who own sticks, people who own broadcast towers, have the potential of being left behind because you have the next great transport, and that is the internet. That's what we're all talking on now. That's how people are getting this program. And in, I don't know if it's 3 years or 5 years or if it's 10 years, but there's going to come a point in time when owning a broadcast tower and $3 will get you a Starbucks, where it won't matter the fact that you have a broadcast tower or a broadcast license, because people will be able to do just that. Buy a 4K camera, produce it, and shoot it down the internet at a higher quality than what people can get over the air or over the cable. And when that happens, yes, we'll say Thank you for getting us from here. Thank you for Uncle Milty, and I love Lucy, and we'll see you next time.
But you also have to remember we're also relying on that infrastructure, that wonderful series of tubes we have to be able to support this.
No, we're not. We won't be though.
Yeah, but you're also saying that. Well, I'm sorry. What I'm looking at as a potential issue is that you have to plan to watch the 5 o'clock evening news at 10:30 when it's downloading, or at least has buffered enough that you can watch it.
But here's the thing: you don't have to do that now. They
right,
do
because this is not a real time.
Well, no, but there are. I mean, my local NBC affiliate. You can watch it. You can stream it from your tablet, or you can stream it from a number of internet-enabled devices while it's happening live. So I can do that, or I can download it later and stream it later, rather stream it on demand. So
make sure you're looking at that quality that you're receiving, though.
That's what I'm
saying. Because
yes.
if we're going to 4K,
yes.
Think of it like from a standpoint of a purist. If I want 4K, I want 4K. I don't want you to tell me I can watch 4K, or we're recording in 4K, but I'm getting the 720 stream.
And then we can have a conversation about whether or not the consumer can tell the difference between 720 and 1080.
Yeah. Well, he's looking at it on a smartphone. So 4K
Yes.
is going to be obviously 30 times better than 720.
Obviously.
Sam, do you want to chime in on this 4K
Sorry,
at all?
was rhetorical.
Or can we move on from here? All right, let's do the last story here, guys, and we'll let you go on a nice Friday afternoon. This is also from Commercial Integrator. This is from Chuck Wilson, the head of NSCA. Chuck says that there are 5 metrics that you ought to track if you are a business owner. They are target revenue per employee. This is his number 1 metric for integrators to track. The backlogging of percentage of annual revenue, gross margin per project, labor utilization, which is always fun, and then cash flow from normal operations. Sam, we'll kick it off with you. First of all, is Chuck right? And is there maybe 1 or 2 that you can add to his list there?
Well, yeah, I agree with all 5 of Chuck's points. I mean, absolutely. And revenue, by employee is probably the key, or target revenue. You've got to keep people moving all the time. I was working with a design build company earlier this week, and he said that's his biggest challenge, is to understand that you've allocated so much revenue, cost resource to a project or job, and you've got to complete it on a timely basis. You just can't, lollygag and take your time and finish it whenever to keep the job profitable. So, this guy's winning a lot of business, but because his employees aren't, acting or reacting in a positive, proactive manner, he's losing money on the jobs that he's got, and he's driving $22 million in business. So, obviously, the billable revenue is good, but if your people aren't focused and pointed in the right direction, know what they're responsible for, then you could end up losing money, even though the revenues look really good. I think those are the 5, most prominent points that you could focus on.
So what do you tell a business owner whose employees are lollygagging? Do you get rid of them, or do you try to motivate them in some way?
Well, in this particular reseller's case, he's trying to train them. So he's created a SOP manual, and he takes them all through it and teaches them, said, this is how we function. This is what's expected if you're working for this company. And he gives them 90 days to ramp up and start performing to the level of the policy manual, or they're gone. He replaces them.
Well, at least he gives them the chance, though. So,
you got to train them. You got to show them the right way, at least.
That's true. Mr. Green, is Chuck right here? And if so, is there any that you can add to them?
I think he's largely correct. I mean, when I work with clients, I try to get them to focus on 3 things. I call it the 3 Ps: pipeline, productivity, and profit. Each one of those is important. It's hard to say if one's more important than the other, but I will say that sometimes running an integration business is a little bit like being the captain of a ship. And the success of whether you're going to get to the other shore depends on how many leaks you have in your ship. Every ship has leaks. The more leaks you have, the less likely you're going to get to where you want to go. So that leaks a lot of times has to do with cost. It has to do with labor productivity. It has to do with profitability by project. It has to do with, and a lot of times the really stellar performers just do a better job of executing on the outer edges of all those things. So they're a little more productive. They're a little more profitable. They got their costs a little more in control. In other words, they're plugging more of those leaks, and there's a greater likelihood they're going to get to the other shore. So, I think in general, he does it in a different way, but we're kind of speaking the same language.
Yeah, very interesting analogy, by the way. I've never heard that. So, Mr. Isella, you'll have the last word on this. Is Mr. Chuck Wilson right, and is there any you can add to him?
Oh, yeah, Chuck's absolutely spot on. But I do like, I believe, Ted's analogy of the leaks in the boat, right? Boy, we see a lot of leaks. We really do. It'd be very, very... It's very easy to explain to someone where they are actually leaking. It's easy to train them how to stop the leak. It's harder to convince them that leak will save them, right? There is every point that Chuck made in here is fantastic, and I agree that all 5 of them are very, very important. The one that I think that I might add to this is, what is the market doing that's affecting not only the target revenue per employee? That can be a fixed number, but how much gross margin per project is definitely one that people are not paying attention to the most, I see. The example is, Tim, you can install this Xfinity app and all of a sudden you got home automation. Well, that just took your gross margin per project. If you were doing, let's say, what you used to do, let's say, I'm just going to throw it out there, as a restaurant job, and that was going to be let's say, a $10,000 install, and now an app, which is $99, is supposed to take care of everything for you. You just lost 90% of your gross profit. Now, in turn, what we normally will do is say, well, I'll just do more jobs. Really? Do you have the staff to do that? So if I needed one job to get that $10,000, and now it's $1,000 ahead, I need to do 10 times as many jobs.
Well,
right?
not only that, do you have a magic button that you can suddenly create jobs?
Exactly, right. Does the market bear it? We've seen this a lot, from our integrators, and it's not, we understand that this world is competitive. They ask us to make more cost-effective products. They ask us to make, the word, I hate using the word, but make it cheaper. We can't make it cheaper, right? Because we use very high quality stuff. It's the bill of materials is what the bill of materials is. We have to keep our doors open too. But the point I was trying to make was we see this a lot, and what we're seeing is, especially for the residential marketplace, is that their businesses are suffering based on people wanting to do more with less. Remember, less is not more. Less is less, right?
Well, if you're,
I'll never forget. I'll never forget. There was a guy. His name was Mr. Klein. He basically said once to me, "Salesmanship begins when the customer says no." Right? You got to sell it. You got to get You have to get your gross margin per project up. You have to make sure your cash flow is definitely there. I always relate it to a restaurant, right? You don't see restaurants that stay in business by first-time clients. You have to build regulars. Right?
That's true.
You have to have cash flow. But yeah, Chuck was right on. I think I think there's probably a big question mark in a lot of organizations that don't know, even his number one, the target revenue per employee. How much revenue do you need to cover that individual, their benefits, their salary, everything, and still remain profitable? I think that's often overlooked.
Yeah, how much do you need to make every time that person goes out the door?
Exactly.
And Tim, I would quibble about one minor point that Chuck makes here, and that is that he talked about the need to be aware of your gross margin per project, and he said because he attributed it to thin equipment margins. Most of the clients that I've worked with, when they have profitability problems, it's almost never the manufacturer's fault. It's almost always because they have estimated labor hours incorrectly, or the leaks take effect. It can be issues that of poor project management, inefficient project management. It rarely is attributable to declining equipment margins. It's almost always because of poor productivity, poor efficiency that they really don't address. In fact, there's a colleague of mine that's out there that preaches to integrators and installers to not bother doing job costing, just inflate your margins. The idea being that that'll be a bigger cushion. So in essence, you can cover your inefficiencies with a higher margin. And personally, I think that's the wrong approach. I think you need to really be in touch with your costs. I think you need to look at your estimates both before the job and after it's complete to see where you missed the mark and how you can be more effective at your estimations. And I find issues more around that than about declining margins from the manufacturers.
Well, yeah, if you're not doing some sort of post job survey of yourself, you're not going to know where your leaks are, and you won't be able to fix them. You're asking
for trouble.
Oh, absolutely, you are. And those things that you mentioned, those are things that you can learn as a project manager, as a business owner. You can learn how to do your labor estimations better.
If you're looking, yes, you can.
Yeah, if you're looking. So
yeah, and Ted, quite honestly, that's where I joked with Tim earlier. That's exactly where I came up with the saying, "How much does failure cost?" Yeah. Because the front end portion, people will try to marginalize the hardware. Yep. They'll try to go use disparate products, especially now in the digital world, if you will. These products don't all play the same way.
Right.
And you'll get into some very catastrophic situations that really beat you up on the end of troubleshooting and trying to get that last 15% of the job done so that it's stable and operating. Come to find out, it was this little widget that was put in to save $10 on the front end, but it ended up costing you $5,000 on support on the back end.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys. Good conversation today. Thank you so much. That's going to do it for this week. Sam Malik, the Vice President and General Manager of ASK Proxima USA, has been with us. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Tim.
Where can people find you or ASK Proxima?
ASKProximaUSA.com.
Okay, very good. Also with us is Ted Green. Ted is the president of Stratacon and also the editor of Strategy.com. Thank you, Ted.
My pleasure.
And where can people find you or Strategy?
They can find me at Ted Green on Twitter, or they can go to strategy.com. That's strata-gee.com, and click on the Contact Us page, and that's me.
That's you. All right, and last but not least, thank you so much, sir. His name is Kevin Iselli. He is the Senior Curriculum Developer for Crestron Electronics. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Where can people find you or Crestron?
Don't look for me.
Okay.
No, you can, of course, find us at Crestron.com, or you can reach me at first letter of my name, last name, Iselli, Iselli, at Crestron.com.
Yes. If you want to follow me, it's TD, Tim David Albright, at Twitter. But more importantly for me and everybody here, go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. We have an education-focused program, a control-focused program, live staging and events, and even a social media and marketing. So go by the website if you would, AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. That's all the time we have for AV Week.